if you thought, oh, I was really set out to be a director, and so now is this like a fail to become a producer? I would say no. I think there's a lot of cool things about producing that I really enjoy now, and I think it's a thing that I could keep doing for forever under the right circumstances. So I don't know. I guess I would just say go with your heart and don't let fear get in the way of one or the other. Don't let the fear of what you really want to do get in the way, and don't let the fear of what you think other people think you should be doing get in the way either.
Sorø Films is a production company that supports emerging storytellers with all aspects of independent filmmaking. On this podcast, we interview filmmakers about their practical wisdom and experience in an effort to demystify the industry. Today, we interview Babetta Kelly, independent producer and director based in Utah, known for her work as producer on Recovery and JK Studios' Loving Life. I really want to start with how you ended up in filmmaking.
How I ended up in filmmaking?
Yeah,
I actually come from a family that is into that. My dad went to film school in LA, and my mom studied theater, and there's 9 kids in my family. I'm the 7th. And everyone kind of has done something like that. When I went to school, though, I wasn't really expecting to do it. I thought I'd like study English. I really liked to read and writing, and I took intro to film because I thought I could get an A in it, and then I like really liked it. I had a really good I really enjoyed the class, and that's what kind of made me decide to pursue it. So I studied media arts at BYU, and then since started working after that.
So it was really your college class that got you into it, not necessarily your...
I mean, I think, because I really wasn't planning on, studying it. For some reason, I don't know why that didn't seem like an option to me. But yeah, once I took that class, I was like, oh yeah. And I think part of it was, if I want to like share anything with the world, this is probably the way to do it. If I want to explore things, and like this is the way we're consuming stories right now. So I think that was kind of what really pulled me in, the idea of being able to do that.
Were your other family members already pretty deep in it? I mean, your dad... Yeah. So what's a little bit of background on your other family members who are in film?
Yeah. So my dad did film school, but then he did advertising. So I grew up in New York because he was working at a place called Ogilvy as a creative director. And then, my brother was already an editor in New York. And my brothers were just starting to get into it. They'd also studied at BYU film as well. And sisters who studied acting in England and stuff. So everyone was kind of doing their own thing. But yeah, all kind of similar aspects of the same sort of creative stuff.
Yeah. Storytelling in its different forms.
Yeah.
And you felt like this was the avenue for you to storytell.
Yeah. I just remember being in class and being like, I think this could work. We've always loved films. We grew up like watching lots of black and white stuff and foreign films. Like that was not scary to us. We really that was what my mom and dad loved, and they have very specific opinions about what is good and what isn't, and so grew up like cultivating that stuff. Those like how to critique a film, and there was always like I just still remember it. We went and saw Tarzan, so I was probably like 10 or so, and I think I'd brought a friend with me to see it, and so we went as a family and with my friend, and then we came out into the lobby and led by my mom, like, and started breaking down Tarzan, the cartoon, and I was like so embarrassed at the time, but it's such a like good example of how my family is. But like, okay, what does this mean, and how did they say this, and what's the theme, and so that's just like was always just a common thing in my family to talk about film that way.
So how did that carry over into your film program experience? And like, I guess you said that's like the way that you felt like you could tell stories the best right now. What kind of stories at that point were you wanting to tell?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I feel like I had another realization as I was watching a movie. I think because of how I was raised in breaking down a film, I had this moment where I had watched, and because there's also like the growing up Mormon aspect of it too, where like we try not to watch R-rated movies and things. And then coming into film school and watching more of those, and like and I remember watching this film that was like pretty dark. It was about a very serious subject, and I remember leaving and like feeling a lot of heavy things, but in the morning when I woke up, I felt like connected to mankind generally, and I felt like, okay, so that's my compass for me. Like when I feel like something can be heavy and it can be dark and it can be serious, but if I feel connected in the end, I feel like that's what I want to chase rather than feeling like I'm alone in this world. I mean, there are those feelings, and I think that you can explore those for sure. But I think what I wanted to do was hopefully connect with other people. And sometimes you connect with other people by sharing how alone you feel. But I love that aspect of storytelling in film, that seeing someone who you may have thought you had no connection to, or they start out and you're like, oh, this person's such a jerk, but by the end you like learn more about them and you're like, oh wow, they have a lot more going on than I realized. And hopefully taking that into how I treat people in my own spaces. I'm not very good at it, but I hope like that's the goal. I think like more connection through inclusivity and people that are maybe different than me and my ideas and everything.
And that story, it's called Dante's Hamlet, right?
Yes, I did a little capstone called Dante's Hamlet.
Yeah. Well, it's very much that story. I tried my hardest to find it. I wanted to watch it so bad.
I think I took it offline recently.
You did. It's not online, which is a bummer because it sounded pretty amazing. And you wrote it, correct?
Yeah.
With your sister, and then directed it, and she produced it.
Yes, my sister Bryn produced it.
So when you were in film school, you started in directing then?
That was like my, what would they call them?
Emphasis?
Your emphasis, yeah. Writing and directing was kind of what I wanted to focus on, yeah.
So how did you transition into producing or more of producerial roles?
I think it just became a thing I sort of fell into. I started ADing for Jeff Parkin, who's a BYU professor, on some of his projects. It was one of those things where I like saw someone else do it and I was like, I think I could do that. Let me try that. And so I did. And actually assistant directing is, I feel like, way more similar to producing than to directing. It's not very creative. It's more like logistical things and running the day. And so, yeah, I guess I'm trying to think what my first like producing thing was even. But producing is cool. What I like about producing is that you get to gather your team. Like we were talking about the people that you work well with. And so when you like get to work with your team, I love the feeling of that.
Do you want to walk us through what your process is? Like if someone approached you today and was like, I have this idea, or you have an idea.
Right.
What are your first steps for crewing up, for finding crew?
I guess you consider what the project is, but for the most part, it's like I have a group of people that I really love working with, and I will just see if they're available first. Sometimes you have the luxury of like being able to shift dates around for certain people, but hopefully the people that you love working with are available, and you just keep going from there. If they're not, then you keep going down the line. And there are a lot of people that I love to work with, but you kind of keep going down the line until you find the right team.
Yeah. How do people get on your call list? Like what are the qualities in a person that you keep going back to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the people that I keep coming back to they're very talented, and they're also very kind. Like there's very little ego to the process. I think I'm very sensitive to that. I have a hard time with anyone who has like, but I also I don't want to like abuse anyone. I want to take care of people. But when there's like, it's tricky because film, I think there's like an old school way of doing things, which I can respect. I can respect the way it's done. But I think there's more than one way of doing things. And so I really appreciate people who are able to like roll with the punches and explore new things. But yeah, mostly it's like people who are great at what they do and who are kind and thoughtful to the other people around them. When you can do that, and you can there's grace for each other, because there's just so many things that can go wrong on a set. There's just so many moving pieces. So that when that sort of thing happens, and we can be like, it's okay, like we know things happen, and it's not anyone's fault specifically, or like maybe it is, and that's okay too. Like we can keep moving. If you can keep moving within the stress of everything, I think that's what I like. That's the kind of crew that I like to be on.
Yeah, forgiving.
I mean, it just
Because
matters. I think like it is really such like a high stress thing. There's so much money involved in projects, and so it's understandable, but that there's a lot of stress. But when we can be forgiving of each other and just know that everyone has the best intentions, and trust each other, that's what I like to be a part of.
I don't mean to take it in like a negative view, but I think this is helpful for newer filmmakers to hear what kind of things get them on a block list, like being like either bump you down to the bottom of the list or probably won't be calling you back,
Right.
I think it's helpful for people to know
Yeah.
what those and I think as a producer, you have to make those hard calls sometimes.
Yeah, it's true. I think I don't know, there can be personalities that are more into it for themselves and have high demands, and I just think for the most part, like, you want to take the job seriously and do the best you can, but also to a certain extent, it's like it's a 30-second commercial, or like I think one thing that's can be hard for me is when people like have expectations that like you need to, like, this is my baby and so it needs to be yours. I just don't think that's very fair. I think because there's like the hours are really hard on shoots, and when it's like you're working a 12-hour day and I still expect you to be able to like take all these calls and things at any hour, like, and maybe I'm talking about that's kind of a higher level position, but I just feel like I'm not into that anymore. I don't buy into it. Like you can do the job and do it well, but like you're getting paid to do the job. I don't think you need to like feel like you have to like sell your soul to every project you're on. I think for a long time I like bought into that, and I was like, you have to give your whole soul to every single thing. And now I'm like, I don't know that you do. Do your best, but I'm trying to think of like other situations where it's been like, oh, I wouldn't invite that person back. I just think when a person is like selfish generally and rude to other people, I just don't have the emotional dollars to spend on that type of energy. And it is crazy how like one person can affect a whole crew. So for the most part, I just try to gather people who jive well together and who are generous with each other.
So that's really interesting to hear how much that plays a role in your decision making.
And that may be unusual. I don't know, but I think I feel it so much when I feel people's energy so much that, when I'm growing up, it's just how it has to be. When I have the choice, it affects my decision for sure.
So there are like functions or traditional ways of doing things that maybe you find cumbersome or that you've already changed on your own sets, like things that you maybe do differently.
Yeah.
That, is traditionally done.
Yeah. Olivia Wilde had said that like she'd gotten some advice from a prominent director who said, you need to have, in order to stay in control of your crew, you need to have 3 public arguments a day. And she's just like, nope. And I think like that's honestly the culture we're coming from. There was also the thing about that Anne Hathaway said that Chris Nolan doesn't let people sit down on his sets. And then he came out and said, no, there's plenty of chairs and all that. But like when I heard that, I knew that was, he might not say no one is allowed to sit, but there is a culture of if you sit down, you're lazy, you shouldn't be, you should always be on your feet and you should always be moving. And I get it to an extent. It's like, it's a lot of money that's being put into these projects, but it's also like, we're human beings. We need to sit down. These are like at least 12-hour day shoots. And like, just like I said before, like bringing in some grace to the situation. And Olivia Wilde also talked about like letting actors and crew talk with each other. I think because I am like very small time, low budget situations, that there is a lot more freedom. We don't have to like deal with like SAG rules or union rules. I think when you're dealing with that stuff, there are like legitimate rules, like you're not supposed to like touch, like if you're on camera, you can't touch art stuff and all these things, these rules that make sense, I think, to an extent. But I do feel like I'm excited to see other people kind of change the game by changing the culture, how the set feels. And I think when we do that, I think things are going to change, and we're going to hopefully hear from different kinds of people, different stories. And I'm excited that that's kind of in the air right now.
That's cool that, you know, being a producer now, you're feeling like it's changing. Like you're in it, you're doing it right now, and you're feeling like it's in the industry. At least here in Utah, is that, or you feel like just in general?
I think generally, I mean, like all those ladies are working in LA, so it's exciting that that's happening. But it did feel really good to hear what they were doing, and I was texting my sister Bryn. I was like, Bryn, we were doing this on Dante, like so. Just like to have the validation that like our instincts are good. We're kind of coming up against a culture that is kind of difficult and really intense, but like to get some honestly like female energy and into this, I think is just gonna be good for I think it's good for everyone too, to have a balance of just good energy. I think it's gonna be good for everyone.
I agree. I think I might be a little biased, but yeah.
I just think it's exciting. I mean, like, obviously I'm not making anything in LA, but like, it's exciting to be a part of it in a small way. I think also the thing for me is like, I want to be making good things, but especially I want to be making good things with good people around me. Like, if it's not a good experience on set, then like, it's hard for me to feel good about what we're doing, what the end result is going to be. I think for me, it's just really important.
Yeah, I think that's it's very the origins. I'm learning. I'm still pretty new to film sets, but I'm learning that the origins of a lot of the structure and how it's baked into the way things are done on film sets is very there's a lot of like military structure and you know there's a lot there that's just baked into the way things are done, that maybe we're getting to a point where we're starting to adjust a little bit to how things are done, and makes a difference in wanting to be there.
Right. Yeah. Like
wanting,
creating a place that people want to be. I think so I feel like I have a little bit of freedom because it's just small stuff that I'm working on, and it's Utah. It's not like we don't have to obey certain rules, and I think I could probably be braver in a lot of aspects too. There's just certain things that, like, especially people that have been around for a long time, that they have certain expectations. But hopefully, I don't know, I hope we can get to a place where it's like, no, we're still going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of, but we're going to try it this other way. And but yeah, to your thing about like the sort of hierarchy of a film set, I remember feeling like there is something weird about it. I remember when we were doing my capstone, and there was a point where it's like, okay, if you're down here, you can't talk directly to Babetta because she's focused on these things. And so that's a thing too. It's like you're only supposed to talk to the first AD. And there is something about it that makes a lot of sense, just for like being able to focus and do the job. And if everyone can talk to everyone, it can even just get loud, and that can be hard. But I think it also doesn't have to be that way. If everyone's like professional and there to do the job, then you should be able to talk with people, and it shouldn't, I don't know. There's just something a little bit that can feel a little icky about it. And I, shortly after graduating, I did a little, like a week-long camp where I was like one of the mentors for this camp for kids in LA. And it was really fun. I had a really great week. And then at the end of the week, the parents came to watch what the kids had done. And it was so fascinating. I don't think any of us were expecting it, but all of the counselors were like, what is this feeling in this room? It got like so serious, and you could just kind of feel like people were all like looking at each other. like who are you and what have you done, sort of like are you important, sort of thing. And I was just like, oh, these people have bought into the idea that like the hierarchy on a film set is also connected to your importance as like a human being. And I was just like, I don't want to be any part of that. And I think that's been one of the reasons, and that was like that was a singular experience. That's been one of the reasons where I'm like, I don't even know if I want to try LA, because I hate the idea of that. But but that's why it's cool to like hear that those lady directors are like kind of shaking things up. And but yeah, I don't like the idea of like, if you're a PA, then you're less than a producer. Or
that's interesting you say that out loud, because I've definitely, like, I think many people who work in film have felt that,
right,
or sensed that, but I don't know if I've necessarily ever heard that put into words.
Because it's a gross feeling.
Your value as a human is connected to your position in film.
Yeah.
Which is actually, that's something else that I wanted to ask you about, is as a producer, it's typically considered a less glamorous role, right? There's like the director, DP, and then there's like then there's everybody else.
Yeah, I know, right?
On a film set.
It's so true.
But have you felt that as a producer?
Right.
And then like what's your response to that?
That's such a good question too. I think I have felt it. I think as a producer, you really are a workhorse behind the scenes. And what's fascinating too about a producer is nobody knows what they do. Like, I just get so many questions about what do you do as a producer? And I'm pretty sure those same people also don't know what a director technically does, but they just kind of think they do. But like, a producer is like this great mystery. And in some ways it is, because I think you could have a producer credit and do different things. Maybe you give money, or so it can change. But I don't know. It's funny that for some reason, even though the producer is the one that is the one that gets to pick up the best picture Oscar, that belongs to them, that it's still like kind of a mystery and you don't really know who they are. But I don't know if it's just because it's like oftentimes not necessarily the creative side of it. It's more of the logistics and budget and making sure everything just like keeps going. Maybe that's why it's not as cool. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure that I have an answer for it.
And so you mentioned earlier that it's something that you've kind of fallen into. Is it something that you are going to continue in? Is it something that you are glad you fell into? I mean, that sounds like, obviously, I'm sure you're glad for your experiences, but like, yeah, is it?
Yeah. I think that's such a good question too. I think I've had days where I'm like, I don't even know if I can do film anymore. Right now, I'm feeling happy and excited. I think, like I said, if you have enough money to do what is asked to be done or what you want to do, and you can hire on a crew and treat them well, like they're paid their rate and they're fed and taken care of, that's really fun to me. When it gets trickier is when you're like have to like call in favors, or that starts to get hard on me. So I do like it. I don't know that I feel like it's like my calling in life, but I don't know what my calling would be either. I think I would like to maybe at some point get into more directing again. And I'm working on writing something with my sister, and that was like just last week. I hadn't written in forever, and I wrote out a couple scenes, and it felt really good. So I think I don't know. I'm open to lots of possibilities in the future, but I do still feel like film projects are really still exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
I think this kind of brings up, because that's like we were talking about earlier, before we even started filming, but that there's that you can wear many hats, especially in an independent film scene. I think outside of LA and New York, there's a lot more freedom to kind of bounce in between roles. But I do feel like there's, at least in my experience, and in talking with other female peers, in the film industry, there's this desire to do directing or DPing, but then you see that these other roles aren't being filled, and there's less competition.
Yeah, less
for
resistance.
those, less resistance to getting into those roles, and so you kind of gravitate that direction.
Yeah.
And in the other direction, you have to fight really hard for them.
Yep.
Have you felt that? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I think I have. I think some of it is my own, like what I bring to it personally, and other times it is definitely outside forces. Yeah, because I did direct something somewhat recently, and as I was working on this project with my sister, I like brought it up kind of casually, and she's like, "Wait, you did something? You didn't show it to me?" And I was like, honestly, I was embarrassed because it was this whole ordeal with like the people that we were working with, how like there's like we were talking about just the resistance of it, like not feeling good enough to direct this little piece. And so it's just, I think there is a lot of that. And I was just telling my sister, Bryn, I'm just like, I'm just too tired to come up against that every single time. So for the women who are able to do that, I am so grateful to them for like fighting the fight, because it's really exhausting. So to see like women like Ava DuVernay and Olivia Wilde and Emerald Fennell, I'm like, it's really exciting to see them up there, and it gives me hope for what can happen in the future. But yeah, I'm like just so grateful for the women who like keep at it, because it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. And I think too, though, that it's interesting to see women filling these other roles, taking them and transforming them like you're doing, and making it, I mean, we're realizing that, maybe directing isn't everything that it's not as important, like it's not that hierarchy that we're saying,
Right.
Producers have so much power in deciding what stories get told and how they get told.
Yeah. I really love to look at Ava DuVernay as an example too, of how she got in. As soon as she got in a little bit, she started pulling other people in who didn't have a chance. Like her whole structure of, she had figured out like, oh, to direct TV, you have to have done a TV episode, but how do you, like, it's that catch-22 of like, but how do you start if you haven't had the chance? So she just started like letting all these ladies direct on her show, Queen Sugar. And now all these women, suddenly like this whole world opens up to them where they're able to go out and do more television because they had this one chance. And I love that too, of like, let's, anyone who can get in, and then let's open it up instead of like holding it close to us and being competitive with other women. I think that was kind of a vibe for a while, but I think we're moving out of that, and I'm really excited about what that means for not just film, but generally, like when we get to that place, the kind of beautiful things we're going to see happening in the world.
I feel like here in the regional parts, there's a lot of freedom, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And maybe more opportunity to reach out to those who haven't had a chance, because there's a lot more. I mean, there's a lot more people who haven't had a chance, but maybe have the skills.
Yeah.
What would you say are like the biggest challenges you face as a producer outside of these hubs, though, in like finding funding or crewing up, or like on an independent project outside of where maybe that's what people do? What would you say are some of the biggest challenges as a producer here?
I guess I wonder if one of the big problems would be like people believing that you can do it, even like there is something about like when people have worked in LA even for a little bit and then they come back to Utah, that they like, it's assumed that they know a lot more, and like that people that are just in Utah don't know anything about filmmaking. So I think if you're like trying to get something done in Utah as an independent film, I think it might be, and this is like, I don't know everything, but, or even very much, but I think like to get money and to get people to buy into that you can do it, you can make it happen, there's a little bit of as a challenge there.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Who are you trying to convince? Like who would be questioning?
I think if you're doing an independent thing, it would be like getting money, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Or getting money and then filling the roles. So like, if I'm giving you this money, then I need like these people, like certain people attached to it who've had certain amount of experience in certain places.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
That sort of thing.
Okay. Are you okay to go into the details? I feel like that's the beast, right? Is like, what is the process? What's your process for finding funding and having those kind of conversations?
Yeah, I wish I had a process. I think I'm still like, I don't know. I don't know how to get money. I haven't really done much like funding stuff. I think it's just like pray, say a little prayer and hope. I really don't know. I wish I knew more about getting funding.
You produced the web series Loving Lyfe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was your process for a web series?
Yeah.
In finding funding?
So I came into that when they'd already had funding. And JK Studios, because I think they had a reputation as Studio C, that's kind of an easier thing for people to put money into. It's like, oh, you've had this success. We've seen your numbers on YouTube. And you have this fan base. So that I think was like an easier thing for companies to put their money into. So yeah, so when I came onto those, the funding had already been secured, and it was like, this is the money we have to work with, and this is what we want to do. And then I basically worked a budget and timeline and schedule into those numbers, and we tried our best to make those happen.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think maybe that's highlighting what you were just talking about, right? Where they're looking for experience. I think maybe that's another big question that, independent filmmakers are wondering is people who have the money, people who are offering to fund, what traits are they looking for in a production or in a producer, or, what exactly do they value? And I'm sure that differs from source to source, but generally, as a producer, what have you experienced?
I think part of it, I mean, there's a lot of like, I think like with JK Studios, it was really helpful that they had that like a big social media presence. And so it was like there was numbers behind them that you could point to, that it's like we have this amount of subscribers and these amount of things, so we feel like we can get you these numbers. So that can be really helpful. And then I think it seems to me, and I'm not an authority on this, but like but with like a crew and things, with producers and directors, it's like, what's your resume basically? What have you done in the past? And I think it can be hard, and it's understandable because generally you're putting a lot of money into something that you want people that are like a sure thing. But it's just so hard in film because nothing's a sure thing. I mean, we've all gone to see movies from huge directors and producers that flop, and they have stars in them and they have all these things. It's just it's difficult for anything to be a sure bet, I feel like, in this industry. Yeah, that's tricky.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm sure that's probably what pushed a lot of remakes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty sure bet.
Like remakes and like what are people nostalgic for right now? Like we'll do a battleship movie. It's just like, yeah. That was another thing though, where I really looked at Ava, where she did Wrinkle in Time, and I think it did fine. But I think even before, people were like, what happens if you like this is your biggest movie you've ever done, and it's with Disney, like what happens if it flops? And her response was, Disney's gonna be okay. I'm just like, that's amazing, because it's true. It's just like, Disney's gonna be okay.
They'll bounce back.
Yeah. If this goes terribly wrong, they're gonna be all right. And I was just I think that's like so inspiring to see that. Just like, I'm gonna do my very best. I'm gonna put everything I can into this. It doesn't land on Ava DuVernay completely if it succeeds or fails, like it requires a whole big team and marketing and distribution and all these things. So
yeah, I think that's, I mean, it seems like the other side of the coin in that conversation about responsibility on a film set and like who gets the creative control,
right,
and realizing on both ends, you know, like when it flops
right,
and when it succeeds,
right.
it's a group effort.
It's a group
It's a
effort,
collaborative process,
right?
and there's no one person who just like comes up
It's
with the
hard.
movie and
right,
puts it out there.
right. It is. It's so tricky. It's like, sure, like be responsible for things that you're actually responsible. Take accountability when you should. But yeah, there's certain times where it's just like, maybe this isn't all on this person. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I get it.
I'm glad you get it.
Okay.
I feel like I'm just rambling now.
No. I did want to ask you though, like in terms of like more specific details of the logistics in producing. You've done a web series. It's a pretty big web series, and then produced on a feature film. What are some of the big differences between a series versus a feature?
I think on my end, honestly, it was pretty similar. I mean, with the web series, we had a client so you have them in mind, but honestly, they were pretty hands-off in terms of clients. With the feature, it was such a passion project, and we had so little money that it was a lot more just doing our very best, and lots of people having multiple hats, wearing multiple hats, and also required lots of forgiveness and working through things, just because we just really didn't have a lot of the resources that make shooting something like that comfortable. Like we were never in a very comfortable place production wise. It was as we were filming, at least. So, but that can be fun too, when it's just like you just all know you're in it. You know this is a passion project. And you're gonna throw all you can into it, and hope for the best. And it fortunately worked out there. With the series, it's a little different because you're like dealing in episodes. I guess that's a little different, but yeah, with that one, we were able to have like a decent sized crew and run things a little bit more efficiently. But that mostly is just like money. That's a question of money and time, which I think is like, you're always gonna wish you had more money, and you're always gonna wish you had more time, from my experience at least.
Yeah. Yep. What is that saying? So cliche. The time is money.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a producer, or I guess for those who are wanting to get into producing, what are first, like the hard skills, right? What are some of the hard skills required as a producer, or you would advise somebody who wants to get in producing that they should develop?
I think communication is a really big one. Can you communicate with other people? Because you are dealing with, so you're like kind of the funnel of like, so here's what needs to happen, the creative things, here's the vision, and then communicating what that means logistically, like what equipment you need, and whatever people need, art, locations, all these things. So communication, figuring out the best ways to do that, and how other people communicate. There's also just like, can you work with spreadsheets and numbers? A certain amount of tech, I think, is like spreadsheets, budget software, scheduling software. Those are just good things to learn because you're going to be dealing with a lot of that stuff.
How much of that did you pick that up on your own? Where did you learn those kind of skills?
I think I a lot of it is just learning as you go. I think BYU tries to teach you some of those things, but I think it's changing so much all the time that by the time I was producing things, the stuff that I'd learned in school, I don't think it wasn't the same thing anymore. So, and I also think it's another one of those things where it's like you can find the programs that work for you. It's not like there's one thing that you have to work with as a producer, at least around here. Just find the things that work for you and being able to keep track of everything. And that might be different programs or different software.
Yeah.
Just
You
depends.
find it as you go along,
Yeah.
what works best. And
I think so. That's been my experience.
What would you say to those who are maybe on the fence about producing or have are kind of like back and forth maybe between directing and producing?
I would say put the energy into what you want to do most. And I think that things will work out. I think I think we feel more resistance to the things that we really truly want to do. And so it makes that harder. But like I was saying with directing stuff for me can be tough. And I feel like I've fallen into a place where I'm like, I feel good about where I am right now. But if you're on the fence about producing because you would rather direct, then direct. Work on that. I think things can fall in place for people who put their energy into that stuff. But if you are finding that you really like producing, it's a cool job. Like if you thought, oh, I was really set out to be a director, and so now is this like a fail to become a producer? I would say no. I think there's a lot of cool things about producing that I really enjoy now, and I think it's a thing that I could keep doing for forever under the right circumstances. So I don't know. I guess I would just say go with your heart and don't let fear get in the way of one or the other. Don't let the fear of what you really want to do get in the way, and don't let the fear of what you think other people think you should be doing get in the way either.
What's your plug for producing? Like what are those things that you're like, yeah, this is actually a great job?
Yeah.
That doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
Like I've said, when you have a good amount of money when you have the amount of money that you know you need to get the job done and can take care of the crew beneath you, then things like when you can like pay for a full crew, it's like things just start taking care of themselves, and it's people that you trust. Then when you like come on set, you can like be with people and enjoy like the process a lot, because a lot of the work is in the pre-production. But once things are like moving on set, it's so fun. And you can just kind of like be hanging out and like just making sure that people are taken care of. And then of course, like if something comes up, like if there's a fire to put out, then you put out that fire. But there's definitely been times on set where it's just like, this is so fun. You just get to come hang out with your people. So that would probably be my plug for producing. And then it's like, and you get to see the whole process too. You're part of the whole thing. Depends on the project, but like lots of times from start to finish. And also if you're working with a team that like trusts you and it's a good, there is some collaboration. You can get to a position where you have some creative say as a producer. So I think it's a cool job. I think it's fun.
It's a great plug.
Yeah, get to that place and things will be way fun. It doesn't always work out that way, but
yeah, I'm sure that's the uphill battle, right? Is getting to a place where you have the funding, and you have the crew who work well together,
right. You
and you can pay them, yeah.
But when that does happen, it is really fun.
Okay, I wanna ask you some of these questions about growing up in New York and in a family of 9 who are all pretty creatively involved in some aspect. How has that, well, first of all, your sister Tess mentioned that
who's also a producer. I always ask Tess questions. Oh, anything I know, I'm like, or like most, I don't know. She's a great person to ask for help. I'm very lucky to be related to her because she's very knowledgeable and wise.
Is she's also a producer here in Utah.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
She's full-time at BYU Broadcasting right now, but she's got a lot of cool stuff under her belt too.
Gotcha. And you're hoping to be working together more in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, we've done projects together and stuff, but there's a passion project that we're working on with some of our sisters that I'm really excited about.
She mentioned that you visited the Met and like Central Park and Broadway musicals a lot growing up. How much of that has like factored into your leaning towards the, filmmaking and the arts?
That feeling of being in a place and having something so personal shared with me in a painting. And there's something that you can only feel when you're like right next to it. Getting to that place in cinema, I think that place of being like, this is a really personal thing to me. And like I was saying before, just that human connection that can happen when you go to that place. I love that feeling at the Met of it's weird too. This is kind of crazy, but like I feel like there's something that happens. I don't know if you've experienced this when you like approach a painting where like something sort of catches your eye and then you like walk up to it. And like as you're walking up to it, you like feel different things as you get closer. And then there's like this feeling when I connect with something that you just feel this like, I don't know, there's something really peaceful about it that I love experiencing. And I think that started at the Met.
And you're feeling like there's a parallel to that maybe in film and the kind of
getting to that point where it's like, this is a little piece of me and I offer it up to you, and you don't, maybe because there are paintings that I walk by that I don't necessarily connect with, that I'm sure that person gave their heart to that too, but like just like some sort of offering, like this is what I offer you, and maybe someone will meet that offering and it will mean something to them, and there can be some sort of relationship that way within the art.
I think, okay, this is one of my last questions then, wrapping this, because I feel like there's like as a producer, you're very much a part of logistically making that idea come to life. And I think it can get a little discouraging maybe in a place where funding isn't super available, for or even, I guess, even in some of the bigger hubs,
right,
for producers to like see that, I'm not producers, but those who are funding, to see that vision before it's happened, and be like, no, this is really gonna connect with people. And so I guess maybe the question here is, this is me just rambling on, I guess, but how do you see yourself in the future, and maybe even in the near future, like making sure that those stories, those like very human stories, get told, that you feel are important,
Yeah. I think that's gonna be probably the thing I keep coming up against again and again in my life. I think sometimes as a producer, it's like it's not your baby, it's someone else's, and you're just part of helping them share their heart. And I think there's something powerful in that as well. But yeah, I think that thing of, I think always feel like I'm bad at networking and I'm bad at pitching. But I think when you look at like networking as like just connecting with other people on things that you both care about, then it's like less scary. And I think pitching could maybe be the same thing, where it's like, oh, but when it's something I really care about, I feel like I will be able to talk about it and share why it's significant to me. And then I think treating it like, well, if someone says no, then that doesn't make my thing any less, the thing that is in my heart any less. It's just maybe not the right fit with that person or with that organization, and being open to like trying again and finding the right relationship because I feel like I learned that pretty early on. You want people on your project who are excited to be there and who believe in it. And you feel it when they aren't. And I know I was saying before that you can't like expect everyone to treat it like it's their baby. And I don't mean that. I just mean you will find people that care about you and they care about the thing that you're saying. And I think when you have and even financially, when all of those things are in place, I think then, like I was saying before, that's when like some flow can start happening, and that's when some magical things can start happening. I don't know how often it happens. But I do think it's something worth the fight. Well, maybe it's not even a fight, but it is something that like there is resistance to, right?
Yeah.
Out in the world, but it is worth it's worth it to keep coming with your heart on the table. Like this is what it is. It's a difficult thing to do to get to be that vulnerable, but I feel like there have been little things along the way that I am proud to be a part of, and glad that I made certain human connections, and I think if I can keep doing that, then I'll be glad that I've chosen this as my career.
Okay, this is my last question then for you. How much does that, like what that final product or like how much you connect with the story factor into whether you're willing to produce it?
I think a fair amount. I mean, obviously I've done I do like commercials and things, and so it's not to say that I'm like necessarily like totally devoted to like the product, but I think a baseline for me is the people that I'm working with. I'm just like super sensitive to that. Like I feel like I kind of have to like be working with people that I love and care about. And then what we're working on is a bonus. I think at this point, at least, as I'm like trying to make a career and a living out of it, that's one of the things that I think is difficult when it's like you're just trying to live to an extent. Like you're just trying to make enough money to support yourself. There are going to be times, of course, where like you take jobs that you don't like, you're not going to be fully invested in.
Sure.
But if you can be working at the very least, if you can be working with people where there is love and respect, then right now that's enough for me.
Yeah. And a great foundation for getting to that point where you're all working on something that you're on the same page about.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that can lead to bigger things too.
Is there anything else you wanted to say or like add about producing or like, I don't know, the film industry here? If not, I think you've said so much, you've covered so much and shared so much wisdom. So
I don't know. I think I like it here. I think Utah's a great place, and I'm excited about where we may go. But I do love there is like a lot of talent here, and a lot of egoless talent, which I think is pretty amazing. And it's really fun to be able to work with the people that I get to work with so regularly. I feel really lucky, really blessed to be here working.
Well, thank you for interviewing with us.
Thanks so much for having me. You guys are so great. I love Sorø. It's a great place. I love all the people working here.
It's been a pretty good community here.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're probably good to cut, yeah. Thanks for listening. To find out who our next guest is and to stay up to date on all of our projects and announcements, follow us on all major social media platforms @Sorø Films. What makes this podcast distinct is that we put you, the audience, in the driver's seat. Influence the conversation by submitting questions for our guests ahead of each episode via Instagram. Sorø Films helps in all aspects of the filmmaking process, including funding, production, marketing, and distribution, with a focus on emerging feature filmmakers. If you're developing a project you'd like to pitch to us, you can submit it at sorofilms.com/submissions.